My parents sold my cherished $5,000 dream computer to fund my younger sister's extravagant shopping spree. And when I moved out, what I did next sent their world into a chaos they never anticipated. I'm 24 years old, and for as long as I can remember, gaming and building computers have been my lifeblood. It's not just a hobby, it's my passion, my escape, my everything since I was a kid. I spent years scraping together money from part-time jobs, freelance gigs, and every birthday or holiday gift I could stretch to create what I called my dream machine, a custom-built $5,000 gaming rig. But it wasn't just for gaming. That computer was my tool for freelance graphic design, a side hustle that brought in extra cash and helped me develop skills I hoped would shape my future. Let me introduce you to my family. My parents, Jack and Linda, are the classic we know what's best types. But their version of best always seems to revolve around my younger sister, Brittany. At 18, Brittany is the golden child, the kind of person who thinks the world spins just for her. Designer clothes, high-end shoes, the latest trends, she's obsessed, and Jack and Linda bend over backward to keep her happy, even if it means stepping on me. Growing up in our house, it was painfully clear. Brittany came first. If money was tight, I was the one who had to give something up. Linda would say things like, "Noah, you're older. You can handle disappointment better." Or, "You're a boy. You don't need as much." I got used to it, shrugged it off, and thought, fine, I'll work hard for what I want. I didn't resent Brittany, not really. I just focused on my own goals, kept my head down, and stayed out of their way. Fast forward to a few months ago. It was a typical Saturday, and I'd been out with my best friend Caleb, the guy I game with most. We were pumped, talking about the next big gaming tournament we wanted to dominate, even brainstorming strategies to crush the competition. I got home that afternoon ready to fire up my rig and practice, but when I walked into my room, my heart sank. My desk was empty. My computer, my monitor, my peripherals, everything was gone. For a moment, I thought we'd been robbed, but nothing else in the house was out of place. I raced downstairs to find Jack and Linda in the living room, sipping coffee and chatting like it was just another day. "Hey, where's my computer?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Linda glanced at me, not even slightly bothered. "Oh, we sold it," she said, like she was talking about an old couch. I stared, my brain scrambling to process her words. "You what? Sold it? What do you mean you sold it?" Jack sighed like I was being dramatic. "Your sister needed new clothes for an event. We didn't have the money, so we sold the computer. It was just sitting there. Just sitting there." My voice got louder. "That computer wasn't just sitting there. I worked for years to build it. I use it for my freelance work." Linda snapped. "Don't take that tone with us. We're your parents, and we did what was best for the family. Brittany has an important event, and you can always save up for another computer." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Save up for another one? Did they have any clue how much time, effort, and love went into that rig? "What about my work?" I pressed. "How am I supposed to meet deadlines now? And what's this event for Brittany that's more important than my computer?" Jack, in full dad mode, waved me off. "Freelance work isn't a real job anyway. You spend more time playing games than working." They always threw that line at me, and I usually let it slide. Sure, gaming was a big part of my life, but that computer wasn't just for fun. It was my livelihood, my creation, something I'd poured my heart into. Their dismissal felt like a slap across the face. I stormed back to my room, my head spinning. I couldn't calm down. I texted Caleb, spilling everything. He was just as shocked. "Dude, that's insane. They didn't even ask you first?" "Nope," I replied. "Just sold it for Brittany's stupid event. She's so spoiled, man." Caleb half joked. "You should have hidden the PC or something." "Hindsight, right?" I shot back. But in that moment, all I could think about was how years of effort had been erased in an instant. and no one in my family seemed to care. That night, I decided to confront Brittany. I found her in her room, spinning in front of her mirror in a new dress, all smiles. "Do you even know what Mom and Dad did to buy you all this stuff?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. She barely glanced at me. "What are you talking about?" "They sold my computer," I said, my voice tight. "My $5,000 gaming rig. Gone, just so you could have your designer haul." She shrugged, still admiring herself. "So? It's just a computer. You can build another one." Her indifference hit me like a punch. "It wasn't just a computer, Brittany," I said. "It was years of saving, working, building. It was how I made money." She smirked, unfazed. "Not my problem. It's not like I told them to sell it." She paused, her tone turning defensive. "Besides, it's not my fault they thought it was a good idea. They're the ones who sold it, not me." My blood boiled. "You mentioned it, didn't you? You knew exactly what they'd do, and you let it happen." Brittany rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Oh, please, Noah, don't act like I control Mom and Dad. If they sold your precious little computer, it's because they thought it was the best choice. That's on them, not me." I stood there, stunned by her heartlessness. She paused, then added, "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with your silly games, you'd understand what's actually important. I have an image to maintain. You're just sitting in your room playing video games all day." I walked out before I said something I'd regret. Talking to Brittany was like shouting into a void. She didn't see the problem because she'd never had to work for anything. Everything she wanted was handed to her on a silver platter, and Jack and Linda were happy to keep it that way. The next few days were tense. My parents acted like nothing had happened, while Brittany paraded around in her new clothes, each outfit a reminder of their betrayal. Every time I thought about how casually they'd decided to sell something so vital to me, my frustration grew. Caleb kept checking in, trying to keep me grounded. "You've got to do something, man," he said. "Don't let them get away with this." He was right. But part of me kept wondering if I should just suck it up and ignore it. Was I overreacting? If Jack and Linda thought they could walk all over me, they were about to learn I wasn't invisible. Those days were rough. I could barely look at Jack or Linda without feeling my blood boil. Every time Brittany waltzed by, flaunting her designer haul, it felt like she was rubbing it in my face. I tried to avoid them, holing up in my room with my old, beat-up laptop. It was so slow. It was like trying to bake a cake in a toaster. A far cry from my custom-built rig. Every time I struggled to meet a deadline or fix a crash, my frustration grew. Caleb was a lifeline, calling at random to distract me with talk about game updates or a funny meme he'd seen. One night, as I vented about how ridiculous my family was, he said, "You know what? It's not personal, Noah. It's strictly business. Except they made it personal and now they're treating it like business." He hit the nail on the head. This wasn't just a financial transaction. This was my family showing me exactly where I stood in their priorities. At that moment, I realized I had to do something, not just to get my computer back, but to make them see they couldn't keep treating me like an afterthought. So I gathered every piece of proof I could find that the computer was mine. Receipts for the components I'd bought, photos of the build process, even screenshots of my freelance earnings to show how crucial it was for my work. I reached out to the person who'd bought the computer. They were sympathetic but firm. No refund unless I paid back the $1,200 my parents had sold it for. And here I am now, torn. Part of me wants to let it go. It feels like too much trouble. The thought of confronting Jack and Linda again makes me want to smash my head against a wall. Am I overreacting? Should I just suck it up and move on? Update 1. Things get messier. Hey folks, I didn't think this could get any crazier, but somehow it has. I was stuck between staying silent or confronting my family, but Caleb reminded me, if you don't stand up for yourself now, they'll just keep doing it. They'll think they can take whatever they want from you whenever it's convenient. He was right. This wasn't just about the computer anymore. It was about respect. So, I confronted them at dinner, figuring it was the best time to get them all in one place. I sat across from Jack and Linda, while Brittany scrolled through her phone, completely oblivious. Linda was mid-sentence about some neighborhood gossip when I cut her off. "I want my money back," I said, placing a folder of documents on the table. Jack raised an eyebrow. "What money?" "The $1,200 you got from selling my computer," I said firmly. "I built that computer with my own money. Legally, it belongs to me. You had no right to sell it." Linda let out an exaggerated sigh, like I was a toddler throwing a tantrum. "We've already been over this. Your sister needed help, and we made a decision as a family." "No, you made a decision for the family without asking me," I shot back. "That's theft, plain and simple." Jack leaned back, his face darkening. "Watch your tone, son. We're your parents. Everything in this house belongs to us. You live under our roof, so technically that computer was ours." "That's not how it works," I said, keeping my voice steady even though I wanted to scream. I pulled out a receipt and held it up. "This says I paid for the parts with my own money. This is proof it was mine. And this," I handed them the buyer's transaction record, "proves you sold it for $1,200. You owe me." Linda gasped, like I'd just disowned them. "How dare you accuse us of stealing? We did this for Brittany. She's your sister. Family is about sacrifice." "Yeah, and it seems like I'm the only one making sacrifices," I snapped. "Brittany gets everything handed to her, and I'm expected to just roll with it. Not anymore. Either you pay me back or I'll take legal action." "You wouldn't dare!" Linda hissed. "Try me," I said, locking eyes with her. Brittany, who'd been silent, finally chimed in. "Oh my gosh, are you seriously threatening Mom and Dad over a computer? You're pathetic." "No," I said, glaring at her. "What's pathetic is you're perfectly fine taking advantage of someone else's hard work without a second thought. You knew what they did and you didn't care." She rolled her eyes. "It's not my fault they decided to sell it. I didn't make them do anything." "You mentioned it to them," I pressed. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Brittany gave me attitude. "I only mentioned your computer because you're always complaining about how busy you are with work. I thought you'd appreciate the break." Her voice was calm, like she was the victim. "Appreciate the break?" I said, my voice rising. "That computer was my livelihood." Brittany smirked, unfazed. "Wow, you're twisting this to make it my fault. You're always talking about how independent you are. I figured you wouldn't mind helping the family for once. Isn't that what being independent is about?" My fists clenched under the table. "Helping out? You didn't need a designer hall, Brittany. You just wanted it. There's a difference." She scoffed. "Maybe you're just mad because I know how to get what I want and you're too busy sulking to figure it out. Don't blame me for being better at this than you." I swear I almost lost it, but Jack slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. "Enough! We'll pay you back, but don't expect anything else from us. You're on your own from now on." I laughed, bitter. "I've been on my own for years. The difference now is I'm done letting you take advantage of me." The next day, they handed me $1,200 in cash, their faces tight with anger. I took the money without a word. It wasn't a victory, but it was a step forward. I contacted the buyer, who agreed to sell the computer back for the same price. Picking it up felt like getting a piece of my identity back. But as much as I loved having my rig again, I knew things couldn't go back to how they were. Jack, Linda, and Brittany weren't going to change, and I couldn't keep living in a house where I was treated like a second-class citizen. I'm seriously thinking about moving out. Is it a good idea, or am I setting myself up for more trouble? Update 2. Making my escape. Hey again! After my last update, I started brainstorming ways to get out. Moving out wasn't going to be easy. I didn't have a huge savings cushion, and rent in Portland isn't cheap. But I had my freelance work, and I was determined to make it work. I called Caleb, who'd been my sounding board through this whole mess. "Dude, you need to get out of there," he said, as soon as I told him my plan. "You can crash at my place for a bit if you need to." "Thanks, man," I said, "but I think I need my own space. I've been under their thumb too long. I just need to figure out how to swing it financially." Caleb was quiet for a moment, then said, "What if you double down on your freelance stuff? You're good at it, and there's definitely demand out there. You could even start streaming again." He wasn't wrong. I'd dabbled in streaming before, but life had gotten in the way. Now, with my computer back and a fire lit under me, it seemed like the perfect time to give it another shot. That night, I started researching apartments. My budget was tight, so I focused on small studios or shared housing. After hours of scrolling through listings, I found a tiny place a few miles away. It wasn't much, a single room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. But it was within my price range and close enough to downtown that I wouldn't feel isolated. I reached out to the landlord, Emma, who agreed to meet me the next day for a tour. When I walked into the apartment, it hit me how real this was becoming. The place was bare bones, but I wanted it. I signed the lease that same day, and it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. The next challenge was packing up my life without tipping off my family. I wasn't planning a dramatic exit, but I didn't want to give them a chance to guilt-trip me into staying. Over the next week, I slowly started moving my stuff out, taking a box or two at a time, and stashing them at Caleb's place until I was ready to make the final move. Meanwhile, I dove headfirst into freelancing and streaming. I updated my portfolio, reached out to past clients, and started advertising my services on forums and social media. The response was better than I expected, and within days I had enough work lined up to cover my first month's rent. As my move-out day approached, I started avoiding my family as much as possible. Brittany didn't seem to notice. She was too busy flaunting her latest designer bag on social media. Jack and Linda, though, seemed to sense something was up. They started dropping little comments at dinner like, "You've been awfully quiet lately," or, "You should let us know if you're planning anything big." I brushed them off with vague answers, but I could feel their eyes on me. The final straw came 2 nights before my move. I was in my room packing up the last of my gear when Linda knocked on my door. "Can we talk?" she asked, stepping inside before I could even answer. "I don't really have anything to say," I muttered, shuffling papers on my desk. "Just hear me out," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed like everything was normal. "You have to understand, we didn't sell your computer to hurt you. Brittany mentioned it when we were trying to figure out how to help her. She said you didn't use it that much anymore, and that it was worth a lot of money. We thought maybe it was a good idea." I turned to face her, my jaw tightening. "So, you're saying this was Brittany's idea?" She sighed, looking almost guilty. "Not exactly, but she suggested it and we thought she made a valid point. You've always been so independent. We thought you'd understand." Her words made my stomach churn. Brittany had planted the seed, and they'd just run with it. "You thought I'd understand?" I said, my voice sharp. "Understand that you sold something I worked years for because Brittany wanted a new wardrobe?" Linda flinched but didn't respond. Instead, she stood up and left, as if her half-hearted explanation was supposed to make it all better. That's the kind of person Brittany is. She twists things to get what she wants. She'll act innocent, drop a hint here and there, and suddenly her ideas become Jack and Linda's plans. The morning of my move came faster than I expected. I loaded up the last of my boxes and left a note on the kitchen counter. It wasn't dramatic, just a few lines explaining that I needed space and time to focus on myself. I didn't want a confrontation. I knew if I tried to explain in person, they'd just try to guilt me into staying. Caleb met me at the apartment to help me unload. As we set up my computer in the corner of the room, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. That night, I went live on my streaming channel for the first time in months. The viewer count was small, but it didn't matter. I was in my own space, doing something I loved. I've got a bit of a weird feeling, but I'm trying to push through it anyway. If anything pops up, I'll post an update. Final update, a new chapter. Hey everyone! Here's an update on how things have been since I moved out. I thought leaving would be the end of the drama, but boy, was I wrong. After one day in my new place, I had freelance gigs to tackle and a streaming schedule to figure out. But there was a nagging thought I couldn't shake. Would Jack and Linda even care that I'd left? Or would they just write it off as me being dramatic? I didn't want validation from them. I'd long given up on that, but part of me still wanted to know if they'd even noticed I was gone. By mid-afternoon, I got my answer. Linda called. When I didn't pick up, she left a voicemail. "You could have at least told us you were leaving," she said, her voice sharp. "Your father and I are very disappointed in how you handled this. Family is about sticking together, not running away." I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. A few minutes later, Jack tried calling, but I ignored him too. Then came the text barrage. Linda started with, "You've really hurt your mother," followed by, "We've always done what we thought was best for you." Then Jack chimed in with a classic, "You're being reckless." I put my phone on silent and went back to work. I wasn't about to let their guilt-tripping derail my day. That evening, as I was setting up my stream, a new message popped up, this time from Brittany. "You left? LOL. Guess you couldn't handle it. Anyway, Mom's freaking out, so you might want to call her before she has a meltdown." It was such a textbook Brittany response that I didn't even bother replying. Instead, I focused on my stream. I was starting to get a small but supportive group of regular viewers, and the sense of community they brought was something I hadn't realized I needed. People who actually appreciated my skills, who showed up just to hang out and watch me do what I loved. It was refreshing. The next few weeks were a mix of progress and lingering frustrations. On one hand, my freelance gigs were picking up, and my streaming audience was slowly growing. On the other hand, Jack and Linda wouldn't stop trying to reel me back in. The texts kept coming, alternating between guilt trips and outright anger. "You're turning your back on your family," Linda wrote one day. "Brittany's upset too. Don't you care about how your actions affect us?" Brittany? Upset? That was rich. She'd barely acknowledged me when I lived there unless she needed something. Now I was supposed to believe she cared? I ignored the texts, but they left a bitter taste in my mouth. One evening, Caleb came over to hang out, and he brought it up. "So, have your parents calmed down yet?" "Nope," I said. "They're still texting me like I owe them an explanation. Classic guilt play." "You think they'll ever let it go?" he asked. "Probably not," I admitted. "But I'm not going back. Living there, it wasn't healthy. They don't respect me, and they never will." Caleb gave me a knowing look. "Yeah, but have you told them that?" I paused, realizing he had a point. I'd been ignoring them, but I hadn't actually confronted the root of the problem. Part of me didn't want to, because I knew it wouldn't change anything. But maybe, for my own peace of mind, I needed to say my piece. The next day, I sat down with my phone and started typing. It took me a while to find the right words, but eventually, I sent a message to Jack and Linda. "I've made my decision and I'm not coming back. This isn't about being selfish. It's about doing what's best for me. I've spent years feeling like my needs didn't matter, and I can't keep living like that. I hope you'll respect my choice, but if not, I'll still be moving forward without you." I hit send and immediately felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't expecting a positive response, and I didn't get one. Linda replied with a long, rambling message about how I was being ungrateful and how Brittany's happiness had always been their priority because she needed more support. Jack followed up with a blunt, "You'll regret this someday." But instead of feeling hurt or angry, I felt free. Their words didn't hold the same power they used to. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my work and streaming. One day, while scrolling through social media, I came across a post from Brittany. It was a selfie of her holding a designer purse with the caption, "So grateful for my amazing parents who always prioritize what matters." I rolled my eyes and kept scrolling. Let her have her little fantasy world. It wasn't my problem anymore. A few days later, a family friend, Sarah, ran into me at a coffee shop. "I heard you moved out," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Your parents are having a tough time. You know, they've been asking everyone for help." I frowned. "Help? What do you mean?" "They've overextended themselves buying things for Brittany," she said. "I think they thought you'd still be there to pitch in." I shrugged, taking a sip of my coffee. "That's unfortunate." And I meant it. It was unfortunate for them. For me, I was doing great without them. That conversation with Sarah gave me a strange sense of validation. My parents' finances falling apart wasn't something I took joy in. It just confirmed what I'd known for a long time. They'd prioritized Brittany's wants over the family's stability for years, and now they were dealing with the consequences. Meanwhile, I was finally learning what it meant to be independent, and I wasn't about to let their choices drag me back into their chaos. The guilt trip texts kept coming, though. Linda's messages grew more desperate. "We're struggling here, and you've left us to deal with everything on our own." Then there was Jack's favorite line: "If you were a good son, you'd help your family in their time of need." A good son? That was rich, coming from someone who couldn't even acknowledge my hard work, let alone respect it. Brittany stayed silent, though. She didn't reach out, and honestly, I didn't expect her to. She probably figured she'd let our parents do the heavy lifting and wait for me to cave. One day, Caleb came over again, a grin on his face like he had something big to tell me. "Guess who I ran into at the store today?" he said as we sat down. "Who?" I asked, already suspecting it was someone tied to my family. "Your mom," Caleb said, chuckling. "She cornered me by the frozen pizzas and went on this whole rant about how you've abandoned them. She even said you're being influenced by bad company, which I'm assuming is me." I rolled my eyes. "Of course she did. What'd you say?" "I told her you're doing great, and maybe if they respected you more, you wouldn't have had to leave," he said, smirking. "She didn't take it well." I laughed, but inside it stung a little, not because of what Linda said — I was used to her dramatics — but because it was another reminder of how little they understood me. They weren't upset because they missed me. They were upset because they'd lost control. A few days later, Linda sent another text, this one different from the others. "Your sister's birthday is coming up. We'd like you to come home for dinner. It would mean a lot to her." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe this was their way of extending an olive branch, but I knew better. It wasn't about reconciliation. It was about appearances. They wanted to play happy family for a night, and I was supposed to pretend everything was fine. I showed Caleb the text, and he shook his head. "Don't do it, man. They're just going to pull you back into their drama." "I know," I sighed. "But if I don't go, it's just going to give them more ammo to say I'm the bad guy." "Who cares what they say?" he shot back. "You're not living your life for them anymore. You don't owe them anything." He was right, of course. Deep down, I knew that. But saying no to my family, even after everything, was harder than I wanted to admit. So, I did something I hadn't done since I moved out. I called Linda. When she picked up, her voice was dripping with fake warmth. "Oh, honey, it's so good to hear from you." "Hey, Mom," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I got your text about Brittany's birthday." "Yes, we're having a nice dinner. Just the family," she said quickly. "Brittany would love for you to be there." "I don't think I can make it," I said firmly. "I'm really busy with work right now, and honestly, I don't think it would be a good idea." There was a long pause before she responded. "You're really going to let your sister down like this? After everything we've done for you?" And there it was, the guilt card, right on schedule. "Mom, this isn't about Brittany," I said. "It's about the fact that every time I try to have a relationship with you guys, it feels like I'm the only one putting in any effort. I'm not coming to dinner because I'm done pretending everything's fine when it's not." She didn't take it well, to say the least. "Fine," she said, her voice cold. "If you want to throw your family away, that's your choice. But don't come crying to us when you realize what you've lost. That was the last straw. Mom, I've spent my entire life trying to earn your approval, and it's never been enough. So no, I'm not throwing anything away. I'm just finally putting myself first. Goodbye. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking. It felt like cutting a rope that had been holding me back for years. After that call, I blocked Jack and Linda's numbers. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew it was necessary. The constant texts and calls weren't helping anyone, and I needed space to focus on my own life. Brittany didn't even bother reaching out, which honestly made things easier. With the family drama out of the picture, I was able to throw myself fully into my work and streaming. One night, while I was streaming, someone in the chat asked, "What made you start streaming?" For a moment, I hesitated. I hadn't talked about my family situation publicly. It felt too personal. But then I realized it didn't matter. I started streaming because it's something I'm passionate about, I said, but also because I wanted to prove to myself that I could build something on my own without anyone holding me back. The chat lit up with messages like respect and "you're an inspiration, dude." It felt good to know people appreciated what I was doing, not just for the gameplay, but for the story behind it. As the weeks turned into months, I noticed that I wasn't angry anymore. I still didn't want a relationship with Jack, Linda, or Brittany, but I didn't feel the need to dwell on it. Cutting ties had given me the peace I needed to move forward, and for the first time I felt truly free. One day, Caleb and I were hanging out, and he asked, "So, do you think they'll ever apologize?" I shrugged. Probably not, but honestly, I don't need them to. I'm finally living my life on my own terms, and that's enough for me. And it was. Now I'm building a life where my hard work is valued and my passions are celebrated, not dismissed.
Thank you for listening. Please share your thoughts, like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more.